This week on the Shameless Podcast.
My first business, I was 10 years old, and me and my cousin, we started a dog walking business, and we made like $25, $30 in an afternoon. You'll never outwork your habits, right? In other words, no matter how much energy you put in one day or 1 week, it's never going to be more than the habits that you develop. Unfortunately, my father fell prone to what we now call the opioid epidemic. Back then they called it the crack epidemic. He fell prey to it. And eventually he lost his battle during an altercation with police on the side of the freeway. He was killed. And that was tough. If you work hard, you build up some equity with people, and your credibility, it becomes your capital. So habits are absolutely everything. If I can move from chaos to clarity, from instability to attempting to make an impact, then anybody listening can too. $1 million outcomes, they don't come from giant leaps. They come from very small, consistent steps.
And just for everybody, the gap between where you are and where you want to be starts with the right habits, the right support, and the right guidance through that journey. Shameless family, welcome to today's episode. My name is Dzikamai Gangaidzo, and I'm the host. And today we've got Arias. How are you doing today?
Dzikamai, I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for creating this space. I love that Shameless is about purpose alignment and storytelling, because my life is, if it's anything, it's proof that the messiness of the journey is what makes it a masterpiece. So appreciate you.
That is absolutely amazing. And you know what? That the messiness of life is the true essence of why we have to acknowledge that, right? If we're going to be shameless, we have to acknowledge that life is not going to be always perfect, not going to be pretty. And I really hope that we can delve into some of those elements about sort of what do you mean about your messiness that then got you to where you are right now. And that is going to be actually, I'm sure, deep into the episode. So for those people who might be interested, you better hang in there, because this is going to be so much fun. But the episode of today, and the name of it is $1 Million Goals Start with $1 Ideas or Habits. And I think I really look forward to us breaking that up. But before we go into that, I think I'd love people to understand maybe what you're all about. I know you're an author, you are an entrepreneur. Would you like to just maybe break down what you get up to?
So like you said, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I am a digital marketer. I'm the CEO of WebsterBerry Marketing, which is a full service digital marketing agency. I also founded LaunchIgnition.ai, which is designed to help entrepreneurs turn their ideas into income using AI and coaching for me and my team. But my biggest thing is I'm a Black man living in Texas. I'm from Texas. As I told you earlier, I'm a proud Texan.
Proudly.
Absolutely. Some people think that the amount of pride that Texans have is weird, which is okay with me. But yeah, man, I truly love entrepreneurship. I truly love, helping people make their dreams become realities. And when it comes to business, that's what every business is. It's someone's dreams. It's someone's hopes. It's someone's, their heart, right? That they're putting out into the world and hopefully adding value to the people that patronize them.
And so, everybody talks about that $1 million dream. They've always got this, before I'm 30, I'm going to have my first $1 million. But surely it's not that simple. And surely it's not just about having this idea, this dream, and being able to sort of take that full on. You have to break that up. So what does that look like to you? And how is your journey exemplified how you might have had a dream and then broken that up into small $1 habits?
Small habits. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a kid, right? I was telling you, my first hustle wasn't glamorous, right? It wasn't smash hit. I wasn't some, business prodigy, making hundreds of thousands. I was on a lemonade stand early on. My first business, I was 10 years old, and me and my cousin, we started a dog walking business, and we made like $25, $30 in an afternoon.
Big bucks.
I mean, at the age of 10, that was an enormous amount of money for me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm old, so it was a while ago. So, my mom actually found out because I came home and I said, "Hey, mom, we made $30." And when she found out, she absolutely freaked out because she was like, "How did you make this money?" And I said, "Oh, you're walking dogs." And she's like, "We don't have a dog." And I was like, "Yeah, I went and walked people's dogs." She's like, "Whose dog?" And I was like, "Oh, I just walked around and knocked on neighbors' doors." And she was like, "Nah, absolutely not. You could have got snatched, So she shut it down by dinner. But that truly planted a seed, right? And the seed was that, and that was so long ago, but what I learned from that is that I have an innate ability to recognize a need, right? A need in the market, a void in the market. Because the way that I came up with that is I heard all these dogs barking, but I never actually saw any of them in my neighborhood, which to me said that they were heard but not seen. And I had seen a TV show that said that dogs need to be walked like an hour to 2 hours a day. So I was just like, man, all these dogs need to be walked, right? So I figured out a way to fill that need. And that's all entrepreneurship is, and I use that today.
And so when you then took that seed that
Mhm.
initially was sort of in that moment, you then obviously grew that concept and you grew some of that thinking and you refined how you got to this point. Would you mind maybe stepping us through maybe one or two sort of moments where you went, that's another seed. That's another seed. I guess those small moments where you built upon previous moments that then helped you gain a level of clarity towards where you are now and the clarity that you have in terms of your goal. Or did you always have a big goal and you always knew what you're going to do?
I mean, I always wanted to be a millionaire. I always wanted to be a business owner. How I was going to get there, what industry, how long it would take. No idea. None of it went according to plan. But yeah, there have been a lot of small and big lessons. Most of them came from my biggest losses that have made me who I am today. I remember shortly after when I was, I want to say maybe a junior in high school, I went to work for this guy who had a car detailing business. And he was like, "Hey, we got all these cars that we need detailed. I'm going to pay you this amount of money." I can't remember how much it was, but it was a decent amount. And I worked, I want to say maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And at the end of it, I want to say he owed me like $1,200 because I had worked so much overtime. So I was working it was in the summer. So I was working like 10, 11, 12-hour days, just knocking out these cars. And at the end of it, the guy disappeared. Never paid me a
What?
dime. Yeah, never paid me a dime. And I'm a kid, right?
Hold on. Like, how does he disappear? He just like
He
up the
just
left?
backed up because it was a mobile detailing business. So he would tell me where to
Okay,
meet.
gotcha.
And he'd pull up to a business park and detail like 4 or 5 cars in that parking lot. And what I learned in that instance is, one, always have it on paper, right? Two, always know who you're dealing with. Make sure that you've got some real information so that you can find them if you need to. Never do anything on consignment, right? Make sure that you get your money frequently in predetermined amounts, right? And all those things help me in business now, right? There's never a time I do business with anyone who buys anything from me. I don't care if it's a $40, product or course or something like that, or if it's $100,000 deal, there's some kind of paperwork attached to that, right? There's some payment method that's attached to that so I can make sure I get paid. And it was a hard lesson, but it was a good one to learn.
And I guess one of the first aspects when I think about the $1 habits is, do small habits outweigh that hustle? I mean, and that grind when you're just trying to get somewhere. Why do habits outweigh the hustle? And when I listen to that story, it's sort of, you went really hard and you were hustling and you were doing everything, but you hadn't had the right habits to sort of make sure that your interests were sort of taken care of. What are your thoughts around habits outweighing hustle?
Yeah, I think I know that your habits are what you're going to. There's a quote, I think it says, "You'll never outwork your habits," right? In other words, no matter how much energy you put in one day or 1 week, it's never going to be more than the habits that you develop, right? You can say, "Hey man, I'm just going to really focus. I'm going to lock in. I'm going to give everything I got." But that's a sprint. The thing that's going to be long term are those daily regular habits. So instead of you just going balls to the wall, for a week, how about you just figure out how to be very consistent daily? And that's going to compound over time. So yeah, habits are absolutely everything. And, I think that a lot of people miss the lessons in the mundane and the everyday. For me, my life was riddled with a lot of struggle early. And every struggle, it gave me a skill, right? The instability of my formative years and early adulthood gave me ingenuity, right? It taught me how to figure out creative ways to solve problems. The pain of loss of parents and things like that taught me patience, right? Fear of losing and actually seeing loss, that gave me focus, right? To figure out how to not lose, how to minimize the option of loss. So, I always say the best thing you can do is turn your adversity to an advantage, or use your adversity as an advantage. And when nothing around you is consistent, you learn to create consistency inside yourself. And that's those habits, right? That you build yourself, you fortify yourself.
And I love that. When nothing around you is consistent, you build those habits. And I guess, were you in a position or situation where it was chaos? It was absolute, like, gosh. And what then helped you get through all of that were the habits that you had learned. Is there a story somewhere around that? Is there some sort of experience that you're willing to share?
It's funny. I was on a podcast, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and the host said, "Man, your life is like a movie. Like it's like a bona fide movie, man." And I was like, "I guess so," and it's funny because, up until recently, I didn't think that people would want to know about these things. These are things that happened decades ago. But I guess it just never occurred to me that these things were abnormal, because it's just my life. So yeah, there's a whole story, and I won't get into all of it. But by the time
Wait,
I turned,
what? I
I'll
kind of
get
want
into some
to.
of it. Get into some of
Okay,
it.
cool. All right, cool. All right.
So by the time I was 18, I had lived in over a dozen homes, two cities, three cities, two states. And, unfortunately, my father was a very charismatic, attractive guy, but he grew up in the 80s, in the 90s, and he fell prone to what we now call the opioid epidemic. Back then they called it the crack epidemic. And I don't believe that was what we was on, but there were a lot of opioids floating around, and he fell prey to it. And eventually he lost his battle during an altercation with police on the side of the freeway. He was killed. And that was tough, right? I was, I think, 13, 14. I was my freshman year of high school. So, it's a very crucial time for a young man, right? You're going from middle school to high school. You're going from being seen as a kid and moving into looking at girls and trying to figure out college and, all these different things. And, you lose the one person who's there to guide you through this transition. So it was really tough for me. I lost interest in school. I lost interest in a lot of the sports. I was a multi-sport athlete. I ran track, did basketball, football. I've been running track for quite a while. We had broken world records for relay races and all these different things, right? I was on a path to scholarship for college. And, this loss just kind of rocked me and shook me to my core, which really just put me on a whole different path, because I was broken at the time. So I wasn't interested in school. I wasn't interested in going to practice. I wasn't interested in any of those things, right? I was just mad all the time. Fast forward. So somehow I graduate and I end up going to a community college up in Orange County, and my mom gets into a domestic dispute. A guy she was dating hits her, and she defends herself, goes too far, and she ends up severely injuring him. The courts ruled that she took it too far, and she ends up going to jail. So again, my freshman year in high school, I lose my dad. Freshman year in college, my mom goes to jail. So now my, financial foundation is gone. Another time I'm trying to focus on school and I get derailed. I had to drop out of school because I needed to find a job. I needed to figure out where I was going to live. I needed to buy a car. I needed to open a bank account. There's just a lot of things that I had to figure out. So I ended up homeless for a while. And then, I kind of bounced around for a while and eventually I got on my feet, right? I got a job at a local 24-hour fitness. I kind of worked my way through there and eventually found myself in promotions. I started doing some marketing for a small record label in San Diego. I did some marketing for a nightlife promotions company. And that's where things really started to get better, started to ascend. I started doing little concerts, bigger concerts, medium concerts, and then eventually I got into festivals, with my largest event being at the Los Angeles Sports Arena, 17,000 people.
Wow.
Producing it with acts like Ludacris and Janelle Monáe and Common and Kerry Hilson, Mixmaster Mike from the Beastie Boys, and a whole bunch of other people. But that was kind of my first big I've made it moment. And that's actually what truly got me into marketing.
Okay. And so as your sort of small concert, medium, big festivals, were there certain habits that you sort of kept repeating, or things that the formula that really worked for you to really get through to that next step? Would you say there was something that as long as I did or I could, those were the building blocks of the foundation of what got you to be able to grow?
Yeah, it took me a really long time to figure out the pattern, but the times where I was in a good mental space, a good emotional space, a good physical space is when I had a job, right, that could give me enough to be able to provide for myself, right? And more importantly, when I got into a routine that built me, right? So getting up and working out regularly, helped me kind of clear my mind, helped me kind of detox myself, helped me focus, gave me discipline and structure and a cadence. Reading helped me an immense amount. And I also noticed that whenever I was working out, I'd read more. When I read more, I learned more things that I could then implement into my life. And, taking just some time to sit with myself and just think, and not just always been in a constant state of doing. I think a lot of go from thing to thing. They get off work, they eat, they watch some TV, they go to sleep, they wake up, go to work, and it just they're doing. And they don't stop to sit with themselves and say, hey, is what I'm doing actually, one, what I want to be doing? Two, is it working? Three, is it building a future for myself? And is it actually truly fulfilling me? And now I'm older. I've kind of seen many cycles, been around the sun around a few times. And I realize that those things are critical for me to be balanced, for me to show up for myself, for my employees, for my family, for my friends, for my customers. So yeah, those habits are critical.
And, that's beautiful, because that notion of being balanced, being able to be self-aware that I'm not balanced, and these are the things that help me get into a balance. And sometimes it's difficult when you're not in a balance to just constantly be chasing, and you never take that time to step up. You're going from thing to thing. And I really do love that. So, but one thing that I don't get is, once you're like, mama, I made it, Carrie Hilson, it's Carrie baby, Ludacris, Common. You're there during these massive festivals, but then you still had a goal. You still had a picture, a bigger ambition. How did you then bridge where you were at that moment to then say, you know what, I want more, I want bigger, I want better? Like, what was that fire within you, and why and how did you then go, you know what, we're doing this, taking a leap?
I don't think that that's what it was. I don't think that, I know I don't, not that I think, I know I didn't choose that. The story of my life has always been, things start going well, I start seeing success, and then a act of God disrupts my forward motion. Right. So we talk about high school and my freshman year, things are going great. And then my dad dies. And then freshman year in college, and my mom goes to jail. The same is there for this concert. right? I'm at the top of my game. I'm doing amazing. I am being, invited to events in Hollywood Hills. I'm, hanging around with celebrities. I was at a party at Teddy's in Hollywood, and I'm in a bathroom stall, and Leonardo DiCaprio sitting right next to me, like taking a piss, and I'm just like, this is
Wow.
crazy, right? Just the circles I'm in, right? And everything's going great. And then the economy explodes, right? It just takes a complete crap in 2009, right? And I'm in California. So the housing market tanks. All of my investors, they usually invest in events. They're heavy in real estate. They're heavy in business. And most of them have lost their financial base, right? They are going through extreme hardship. But the stock market was in the crapper, it's just like all these different things. So my ability to raise money to do more events evaporated in like a few months. So it wasn't that I didn't want to keep going with that. It's just, it wasn't there. I couldn't,
Yeah.
through no fault of my own. And, I stuck it out. I'm not a quitter. So I just kept going at it for a couple of years. But those couple of years after the recession, a real deep recession, almost a depression hit, was tough for everyone. So, 2-3 years of things just going round and round and round and not getting better, I said, I need to get out of California. And I ended up moving back to Texas, which I had to start over. Right? I haven't lived in Texas since I was a kid. And now I'm, 24, 25 years old, coming back to Dallas as an adult, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. So I land on in my grandmother's spare bedroom, and my brother's like, hey, I can get you a job bartending just to put some money in your pocket. Right. So it wasn't that I was like, man, I just want to do more. It was like the powers that be, the divine intervention was like, yeah, this isn't it for you. You've got to do something different.
And so then, and now I'm still trying to grapple, trying to put my finger on it as to you've gone backwards now. You're on the game on top of the mountain, and then you've like regressed backwards. How do you go? I'm getting there. I'm gonna go back and restart, because that's a tough thing. You knock down, and then you're now sort of having to build yourself back up. What was that then helped you build?
I guess there's just something in me that says that I've refused to surrender. I refuse to just say, I'm just going to go be a mid-level manager for the rest of my life. And no disrespect to any mid-level managers out there, right? You providing for your family, you're doing an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, man. I get it. And I've been a mid-level manager, right? I get it. But there's just something in me that pushes. It's that thing I've had since I was a kid, right? That see a need and try to fill it. That's just the way my brain is wired. So whenever it's so bad, even when I take my fiance out to restaurants, and if we're not getting, the best service, or it's not, I'm sitting there analyzing the structure and the efficiency and the processes that I'm seeing at the restaurant, right? I'm noticing that the manager hasn't come around and checked on the table. That's a part of the process and a signifier of well-ran restaurants. That's that quality assurance, right? Maybe your server sucks, but the manager comes around and makes sure that it doesn't continue to suck. And if it does, he tries to fix it, or she tries to fix it, right? So that's just coded into me. And I eventually landed a job at a really large digital marketing company, the largest in the world at the time. And I was just a lowly sales rep, selling Google AdWords and other products. And in doing that, I got my certifications for Google AdWords. I learned online advertising. I learned how to sell digital marketing. I learned the buzzwords and all the stuff. And, most of the clients that were there were, not Black. So, I recognized that a lot of the things that I was learning, a lot of these things that a lot of these other companies were putting into place, Black entrepreneurs weren't getting. So on the side, I started doing some of this stuff, just freelancing, and business started to pick up. I started doing that. I started building websites. I started doing graphic design. And that eventually led me into, this company that I now have.
And at what point did you go, I want to build my own company?
When I started making more freelancing than I did at my job, I realized that there was a huge need for what I was doing, but also is something that I enjoyed. At the company, I was just another number sitting in a cube, right? Clock in, clock out, make your calls, close some deals, go home, come back, do it all over again. And with the freelancing, I got to know the customer. It wasn't just the first transaction. I actually got to see them through the life cycle of seeing this transformation in their business. And for me, that lended purpose. That was something that was deeper. And I was dealing with people that looked like me. I was helping them realize their dreams. And at the time I didn't know that, but I just knew I got really excited when I got to help somebody, when I got to build a website, when I got to do some marketing for them, or when I did some graphics and they're like, that's exactly that's what I saw in my head. That was a good feeling. And I just followed that.
The reason why I really love that, or I take a lot of inspiration from that, is because sometimes the story sounds, looking back, like, I just wanted to do this. I knew exactly what I was going to be from the age of 4, and I was going to be a doctor. I was going to have my own practice, and lo and behold, 20 years later, I got my own. And sometimes you just follow a desire, follow a passion, follow a purpose, more so than trying to follow that goal. What I feel, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was you following this innate nature of solving a problem, having a connection, and making an impact. That sort of, those three things just sort of led you into this space where you went, you know what? I'm now making more freelancing, so it doesn't make sense to me come back to do this day job. And it's not like, and that's the gift for everybody who's doesn't have this great goal. That could be a lesson that somebody might be able to extract from your story. Is that fair?
Absolutely. It sounds corny, but it's that people say, follow your heart. And to an extent, that's what it is. But the other part of that is heart isn't enough. You have to figure out how to turn your passion into profits. You have to figure out how to take the thing that you love to do, that you are gifted at, and find the path to adding value to someone else's life, adding value to someone else's business, right? And if you can figure that out and you can put in the 10,000 hours that it takes to become world class at what you do, well, then you will find more success than you ever know what to do with.
At this point, it's kind of befitting to talk about the fact that that's what you're about, right? That's, not what you're about, but the launch ignition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the program essentially that sort of helps people to really turn their business, their aspiration, something into a profitable business. Was that fair?
Absolutely. LaunchIgnition.ai started out very much as a labor of love. Me having friends and family members who wanted my agency to help them with their marketing, but I'm like, hey, you're not really ready for us to do your marketing yet. And that would kind of throw them off because they're like, well, I got money. And I'm like, it's not about money. It's about your business isn't set up for scale. If I were to help you with your marketing, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of customers that you don't know what to do with. So Launch Ignition was designed to help entrepreneurs that many of them wait months to launch an idea. And then many times after they launch, it takes them years to actually sequence it and set it up for scale, right? To dial in and get it organized in a manner that it can actually handle a whole lot of volume in business. But, a lot of times once they get there, once they've, spent the months trying to get the idea going or the years trying to figure out how to actually make it work, by then the momentum is gone, or the opportunity, the window that they had for success is gone. So with Launch Ignition, we take you from idea to income within a couple weeks. And we started out with just some spreadsheets, some PDFs, and some coaching videos, right? And me meeting with people, to now a fully automated system with AI at its core. We have a whole course that goes along with it. We do weekly meetings and we bring all the entrepreneurs from the system into one place, and we teach about the mindset of an entrepreneur. We teach tactical things on how to build websites and create email automations and all this other crazy stuff with AI agents. It is turned into a whole enterprise, and way more than I ever could have thought it would be. But now, we've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs. There are like 120, 130 entrepreneurs that have went through this program, and many of them making six figures or above.
Wow. And I really admire that, because over and beyond sort of digital marketing, there's that piece where you really are ingrained, or you really want to have that impact. My question actually is more around, don't you ever just feel like, damn, I'm just tired. I just want to like be lazy, and I just want to not have to just do this hustle thing. And it's a Friday. I'm just like, surely there's something, the beauty, the sweet, sweet surrender of, procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me you feel that pain also, because I just feel kind of like I'm not doing enough with my life when I listen to yours.
No, man, I am a robot. I work 24/7. I don't ever feel that way. That's what I'm sticking to. No, yeah, man. No, I get that feeling all the time. And what I realized is, you have to give yourself a pressure release, right? There's got to be a pressure release valve. You gotta turn that little knob and let a little bit of that pressure out. Otherwise, you're going to overheat and you're going to malfunction. And there are a lot of people, especially in the States, that, we have this hustle culture of, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I hustle or die trying, all these, sleep is for suckers, all of these things. And there's nothing wrong with you doing those things in the short term. But, entrepreneurship is a marathon, not a sprint. And it has some times to sprint in there. Those are those, hey, grind it out, burn the candle at both ends, burn the midnight oil times. But you have to build in breaks, right? For me, I take Sundays and don't call me, don't text me, don't even think about me, right? Sunday, I don't even want any mental vibrations coming my way, right? Just forget I exist until Monday. That's one of the things that I do in order to kind of give myself some time. And then I'm fortunate enough to be at a place in my business to where I can take vacations regularly. So, usually once a quarter, I'm somewhere, right? Typically, 2 to 3 international trips. And then, we do domestic stuff. But if I'm being honest, because my girl's going to see this, I work on those trips. So I'm not completely disconnected.
Oh, okay.
But
And that's that. I was gonna call you out on that. I was just like, so wait, so you go, and I just wanted to, please, to your girl, I'd like to actually hear her complain in the comments below.
She's always like, when are you going to be done? We were literally just in the North Sea on a cruise, a Virgin cruise, going through France and Belgium and Amsterdam and all this different stuff. And I remember her going to the spa because it was a sea day, and then she went and played bingo, which I was like, you're turning into an old lady. She went and played bingo. She went to some shopping thing where they're like giving free champagne, let you shop and all this. So she did all that, and then she came back. She's like, when are you going to be done? Because this is ridiculous. And I was like, just give me 20 minutes and I'll be done, right? So, but it's that, right? It's the, hey, I'm going to unplug at some times, right? Yeah. So usually when I'm on vacation, I do half days. So I still get up early. I'm up at like 6 a.m. and then I stop at like noon, right? So I'll do like 6 hours, and then, she's got me for the rest of the day, and then we do it all over again. But those are the things that keep you from overheating. Those are the things that keep you from building something that you can't later sustain.
And I love that, because it sounds like you still maintain a certain cadence, a certain structure. Even though you might be away, you still go, I'm gonna wake up early. That's what I do. And I'm gonna do, and at least it just gives you a level of consistency that allows for you to have a good rhythm, even though you're in more of a foot off the pedal mode or mood.
Yeah, so that's it's more like coasting. It's like I hit the brakes, still moving. I just take off the gas a little bit. So yeah.
So then I got a question for you. You done all these things. You talked about sort of moving forward now to getting 7, 8 figures, and that's ambitious. That's looking forward, right? Do you have any views around goal setting and how you then take where you are, be grateful for that, acknowledge that, celebrate that, but then have the drive to then say, and the foresight and the patience to then say, I want more. What does that process look like for you?
I'm a left and right brain person. I'm pretty evenly split. So for me, it's when it comes to goals in my personal life and in business, I try to be very specific. I try to attach numbers to everything that I do. Even with, say, my personal brand, right? This exchange is part of a goal. I decided that I needed to elevate my brand, right? We've got all these clients, we've got all these customers. I'm known by a lot of people in the business world, but I've never spent much time on my brand. So I said, hey, I'm going to do 100 podcasts in a year. I put a number to it and a time. And my team was like, you're going to do what? I said, yeah, I'm going to do 100 podcasts. And so I hired somebody to help me do that. Here we are. So
Thank you,
that's
that somebody. I'd like to thank that person who's made you be here right now.
right. Shout out to Vivian. So I try to take a very non-abstract approach to everything in my life when it comes to goal setting, right? The whole SMART goal thing. So, whether it's with my company, I have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets with all of our goals, and we're honest about whether we hit them or not. I actually just met with someone high in my company, and we looked at where we are performing for this quarter, right? Because the quarter's coming to an end. And I set increases in what we're trying to do. If we made, 3 million last year, well, I'm like, hey, can we increase, by 20% this year, right? Can we make, 3.6 this year? When I'm working out, I got my little smartwatch. It keeps track of my heart rate and how much I'm in that maximum feel with my heart rate. How long I'm working out, how much I'm eating in order to slim me down. Right. I try to make it so that I can track my progress, and that gives me a little bit of peace of mind and a little bit of freedom to run, right? In all things, whether it's in my personal life or my business life, because I know there's some mechanism to keep track of the thing that I'm trying to achieve. And then I just said regular times to come back and take stock of what we did, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. Did we hit the goal? Did we not? And if we hit it, awesome. Why? And if we didn't, awesome. Why? And that allows me to incrementally improve.
And that's absolutely beautiful, because I think leaders of tomorrow, it's not just about setting goals. It's about actually being able to build the systems that outpace or outlive that need for motivation. Because as long as you've got a system, you got a process, look, today's not my best day. I'm not feeling like $1 million, but one thing that I can do is I know that I just got to just keep on this, because I've got this measurable outcome that I'm trying to hit. I just do a little bit. And today I'm just one step closer. And it's that incremental benefit and incremental goals or strides towards getting to those goals, which is beautiful. But we've run through this, and I want to do a quick fire round with you. So
Okay.
I would love to say the first thing that comes to your mind, no explanation, but I don't know if you give a really juicy answer, I might have to ask for that explanation. But on the quick fire round, the first question is, what do you say is the smallest habit that turns into the biggest ROI for you?
This habit that turns into the biggest ROI. That was tough.
You're overthinking it, man.
It's a coin toss between, working out and reading. I would say your health is everything. Good health gives you more time on this planet. So probably regular workouts and eating clean. Yeah.
Eating clean.
Yeah.
Workout. That's interesting. Would you say, what's your favorite book?
Favorite book would be, you'll love this, The Slight Edge.
I don't know
Slight
that
Edge.
Book.
Man,
What's
Slight
that book
Edge
about?
by Jeff Olson. It is about habits.
Okay.
It's one of those books, man, is small but mighty. It's all about the little things that you do or don't do every day that makes a profound impact on your life, both personal and professional.
Okay.
Great book.
And what is that one thing that you can't live without?
Family. family, love. I think that all the things that I do, all the things I've created, all the things I hope to create and do, it's all for family, right? It's to provide for them both monetarily and immaterial. I build myself up to be a certain type of man so that I can hopefully guide through my actions those that I love.
And it's one thing to be in a space where you're trying to achieve something, right? We talked about the $1 million, setting those goals. And if you don't have that purpose that sort of underpins sort of why you're doing it and something that you really connect with, that when you say family, to me, it's that base of where that motivation stems from. And being able to always come back to that is probably something that keeps you grounded and keeps you humble.
Yeah, man. We were talking about goals or something that was kind of in the back of my head. Most people don't reach their goals because, it's not really that important to them. It sounds good, but they haven't really figured out how to attach something visceral, right? Something internal, something deep inside of them to that goal. And because of that, when faced with the option to do or not do, most of the time they choose not to. And most of the time, it doesn't cause them any pain or distress because it's not something that's really important to you. And if you can't figure out how to attach that to the various goals that you set in your life, you're not going to achieve them. You're not going to do what's necessary. You're not going to push through the plateau or the struggle or, the barrier that's been placed in your path, because everything that you want and don't have comes with a cost. And, if you don't have a emotional connection to it, you're not going to pay it. You're not going to pay that cost.
Absolutely beautiful. So I have actually got the quote of this episode, and surprise, surprise, it's Jeff Olson, right? And the quote is, remember, success does not lead to happiness. It's the other way around. Greater happiness is what leads to greater success.
Absolutely.
And the crazy thing about why that quote for me resonates is that innate base of what you talked about. The fact that you have your family, you've got those you care for, but you've got the passion to actually make an impact that has driven you towards sort of the path that you're on. And though it might sound like a movie, yeah, you were sat in a toilet watching Leonardo DiCaprio pee. That's what I heard. I guess it's that purpose, the larger need to actually help contribute. And even at the age of 10, when you saw that need or that need within this community or society of dogs that need to walk, and that people who have dogs that you don't see and out of mind, you said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make money. And you made paper, $30. And before dinner, you were told, we're going to close this money printing machine out. That seed was sort of implanted in you in that moment. And I think from that point, your desire to actually contribute to address issues, to solve problems, to plug that gap that exists in society keeps coming up as you were sort of talking. And whether it is your Launch to Ignition program that looks to do exactly that, or Content Canon that really looks to help people to be able to leverage digital marketing and make their businesses more sustainable, more visible, more profitable, I think your happiness stems through the idea of that you're able to give that impact. What I really appreciate in terms of the stories is how your routine puts you to be in a happy space that then allows for you to then impact and provide that happiness for others. And I love that you shared with us sort of the phases of your life where you're losing your father at a young age, you lose your focus, start to pick back up, lose your mother who goes to jail, end up being homeless. And those situations, everyone would probably, in the moment, it seemed like the end of the world. But you turned that adversity and you made something of that. You grounded yourself towards trying to be more, be better, and you did not quit. And building yourself up to being now running festivals, 17,000 people, ludicrous. Harry Hilson, come in, and there we go again, right under your feet. The financial crisis strikes, and the act of God disrupts, and you find yourself going, you know what, I'm going to go back to Texas with my grandma, and you're going to start as a low level rep. And I think a lot of people would have lost a lot of motivation in that space. And I love the fact that you talked about those routines that really ground you and help you be able to, I guess, get to that cadence that is needed for you to not necessarily stop in adversity or in procrastination, or when you feel lazy, when you're not motivated. It's those small routines that say, I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to read. I'm going to grow myself. I'm going to create a balance, whether or not the world around me is allowing it. And being able to take yourself and balance yourself then gives you that ability to then get into this low level rep job, start freelancing. Then your freelance becomes now the main thing. And bang, before you know it, it's time to scale. And you want to scale because you want to provide people with meaningful inputs, meaningful contribution, meaningful impact. And though you were a number at the company, and it was the large just digital marketing company in the world, your purpose, your happiness, you wanted to lead with that happiness. And so that's how you found yourself within that freelancing space. Having trained now 130 entrepreneurs, business is booming, and you're now looking into the future, really trying to make this mark even more impactful. And I love the fact that despite you putting yourself under pressure, setting yourself targets, looking to build your brand, looking to build your presence, you still find those moments to pressure release, right? To not overheat, not malfunction, because you appreciate that your happiness sits in the balance of being able to not burn out, not overheat, and to look at sort of your entrepreneurial journey as a marathon, not necessarily a sprint. And so even though you ghosted me on Sunday when I try to call you because you don't pick up and you don't do nothing on Sundays, I think that is what's needed in order for your happiness to inform and to be balanced within your own space. That then allows for you to be able to pour into others. Arias, I think this discussion for me has been grounded in the idea that we should though we might not know the end goal or where it may take us, though sometimes we might feel like the world might be against us, and every moment, every good thing seems to get taken away at a moment. And some of the listeners might be in a moment where they feel like certain things have been stripped away from them. Your story to me shows if you build the right habits, you build something that might be able to outlast some tough moments where you don't feel motivated, moments where you're feeling adversity. Building those habits allows for you to get out of a bad moment, allows for you to build happiness, and therefore lead to greater success. That's why for me, Jeff Olson's quote resonates with what we talked about today. And it's an absolute pleasure having you today. And I really hope for some of our listeners, they take this, compound those $1 habits into $1 million. And we hope that the impact of this discussion transcends this 1 hour that we've had of amazing conversation. I'd like to thank you for taking the time. Any last words?
I mean, you just summed it up. I don't know if I can follow that, but I was thinking about the name of this podcast, it being shameless, and shameless means showing up without apology, right? Without fear. And I think that the kind of, as you put it, my story proves the mess is part of that masterpiece. And if you work hard, you build up some equity with people, and your credibility, it becomes your capital. So habits are absolutely everything. Those are the systems that become your legacy, and your systems are your safety net, right? Against failure. And your story, when it's told shamelessly and with courage, it can truly shift everything for you and the culture that's around you. So if I can move from, chaos to clarity, from instability to attempting to make an impact, then anybody listening can too, because your struggle isn't the end of the story. It's the soil for your success. $1 million outcomes, they don't come from giant leaps. They come from very small, consistent steps. And if you're a business owner, your business isn't going to break just because you miss one big opportunity or move, but it will break if you miss the daily habits that will create your momentum. So stay focused, man. Stay hungry. Be brave in the face of adversity. And if you can get your money right, because if you can't manage $1, then you definitely can't multiply it. And if you can't master the small things, then you'll never be able to sustain any kind of scale, because $1 million goals, they start with $1, right? Those dollar habits, as Dzikamai said, it's not about the money. It's about the muscle you build to hold the money and eventually grow it.
Absolutely beautiful. And for those of you who are struggling to build that muscle, whether it's sticking to goals, building goals, setting right habits, and I think you might want to check out not only the goal setting mastery course on Transformation Leader, but Arias has got a lot of different things also in terms of his book and also in terms of the program. Gosh, Ignite. Please remind me, because I am horrible. Launch Ignition. So if people do want to meet you or do want to chime in with you, how are they able to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can Google Arias WebsterBerry, Arias, last name Webster like the dictionary, and Berry. On all the socials, it's just my first name, Arias, and then Web, W-E-B as in Bravo. If you're looking for marketing and stuff like that, WebsterBerryMarketing.com.
And just for everybody, the gap between where you are and where you want to be starts with the right habits, the right support, and the right guidance through that journey. And sometimes you do need that level of support. Sometimes it's within. But all this discussions about is trying to grow that ability for people to be better. I have had a wonderful time. It's been an absolute honor, and I have learned so much. I've been inspired by this conversation, and I'd like to yet again thank you for taking this time out.
Appreciate you.
This podcast is brought to you by Transformation Leader. You can follow us at www.t4leader.com.